the Honourable Member for Kalani.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, these are very rough times. Many people can't pay the light bills, water bills. Unemployment continue to rise. Can't pay their school fees. The bottom line, people need jobs. I don't care how you cut it, need jobs. But Mr. Deputy, I want to say that I fully agree. I agree that the minimum wage needs to be increased. And I accept the increase of $210 because that is all that is being offered by the government here today. But in this time of crisis, Mr. Deputy, a little something is better than nothing. However, Mr. Deputy, I came to this honorable house today to ask two very pertinent, important, what I think are essential questions. What could an increase in the minimum wage possibly mean to a Bahamian who have no jobs? I attended the Saxons function the other day, and the question they were asking me, say they heard that there's going to be an increase in minimum wage. I said, but Doc, our problem is beyond that. I don't care what they increase the minimum wage at. Our problem is I need a job. I have no wage. I went to Andres, and that was the same issue. Minimum wage, you could increase it to $10,000 a day. Doc, it makes no difference to me. My problem is I need a job. The minimum wage don't mean anything. Then the other question I have, Mr. Deputy, what can it mean to numerous families who count not a single job within the household? Not a single job. Things rough. The trouble is, there are too many families who are suffering the hopelessness that zero income brings. The government offer hurting Bahamians a minimum wage that is woefully inadequate. As the Minister of Labor himself admitted in his own comments, Mr. Deputy, his own comments, this is bad enough. But the fact that you offer it as solace in the midst of a growing crisis of joblessness is terrible. People want jobs. It's like, Mr. Deputy, it's like a sick patient who is hemorrhaging at the neck, bleeding to death, and you offer them a throat lozenge and tell them, here, this would solve the problem, when we know that they need surgery. The same thing happens here. This nation today is bleeding, but it's bleeding for jobs. Yes. That's the bottom line. And joblessness is the disease that the Bahamas is facing today. Despite their incredible promise that you have had the cure. They said they had the cure for this disease. But the disease today that we see in terms of joblessness is spreading throughout the length and breadth of this Bahamas. It's spreading like an epidemic, and now we're facing a joblessness, a plague that's facing this country today, Mr. Deputy. And I want you to remember the commitment to create 10,000 jobs in a ridiculous, unrealistic space of time. In amazement, Mr. Deputy, I continue to think of the Prime Minister's boastful repetition of the phrase, as he sat over there, he said, jobs, jobs, more jobs, more jobs. But all I see is layoff. I opened the paper this morning and in Harbor Island, pink sandals, that's it, pink sands, 80 people being laid off. But yet he said, jobs, more jobs. That was the budget statement. Every time he said jobs, he all sorts of banging over there while people were being laid off. Mr. Deputy, this was either a calculated political ploy or a case of placing their eggs in a basket full of holes. They placed their job eggs in a basket full of holes. And I'm talking today about the holes of arrogance. The holes of arrogance and overconfidence. That's what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the fact that most of these eggs of confidence were placed in Bahama. That's where the eggs went. But Mr. Deputy, I want to ask two questions which are important. What tax incentives or other economic stimulus incentives are they planning to bring forth that will increase hiring by local businesses to jumpstart and grow the economy? The other question I want to ask, in light of the Bahama debacle, is it not about time we offer some tax incentives to local businesses to generate more domestic direct investment so that we can begin to diversify our economy, reduce our levels of employment, and become less dependent on direct foreign investment? Mr. Deputy, this government didn't do its homework. The only studying they did was how to manipulate Bahamians into believing in them enough to vote the Christie-led government into a second non-consecutive term after they voted them out in 2007 for the same kind of smart but empty promises they made in 2012. The Bahamian people came back. Good governments don't keep their fingers crossed and hope for the best. Good governments plan thoroughly. Good governments keep a watchful eye on matters of national importance. Good governments establish contingency plans before the days of trouble arrives. And I only want to say, Mr. Deputy, the question one has to answer and be cognizant of, should Bahama open tomorrow, experience difficulty with occupancy, in order to keep the rate up, should they decrease the room rates, we would see a repeat of the 80s. And I'm sure they know what I'm talking about. I know, Mr. Deputy, that with the best intentions, we human beings can't foresee all the calamities that befall us from time to time. For those that good research can't predict, I pray. I have faith. And faith can move mountains. And I pray and hope that we all have faith. So, Mr. Deputy, for sowing calculated politicking and deception, the government is reaping a bitter harvest of layoffs. It's not like the Prime Minister said, jobs, jobs, more jobs. It's layoffs, layoffs, more layoffs. That's what we're experiencing. They keep coming, and their response has been lame at best and uncaring at worst. What bothers me deeply, though, is the fact that this government appears to be totally insensitive to the suffering of the people who put them in power here today. The minister responsible for labor, the good honorable member for Golden Gates, said something unbelievably callous. Unbelievably callous. And I quote, every merchant throughout the Bahamas should be happy for this increase. Unlike those individuals like us making plenty of money. I don't know what he's talking about. Like us making plenty of money. That good gentleman here, I paid only $28,000 a year. So I look forward to the public disclosure so we could see where this money that he's talking about coming from. I look forward to see where the individuals entered this parliament with $200,000-$300,000 and suddenly worth $7, $8, $9 million. The public know my disclosure. It's there. They know how much I worth. I don't repeat it, but it's record, public record. But I look forward to see every member in here. I look forward. I finished the quote, Mr. Deputy. I finished the quote. These people who make the minimum wage, spend all their money. And I could understand why Super Value and Solomon's and all of these business places could appreciate this increase, because every single dollar made by these individuals will be spent. They have no room for saving, end quote. That is unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. I say to the minister, in that statement, he cheerfully admitted that all the money of the people who are forced to live on minimum wage will go into the pockets of the shopkeepers. He cheerfully admitted that these Bahamians won't be able to save any money for rainy days. He admitted that. These Bahamians won't be able to save 1 red cent for rainy days. And believe me, Mr. Deputy, believe me, it's raining plenty in this country recently. It's raining hard times. It's raining pain and suffering. It's raining murder. The blood is raining through our streets. It's raining crime. It's raining victimization. It's raining unemployment as unemployment continues to rise. It's raining no-bid contracts. It's raining house foreclosures, Mr. Deputy. It's raining all over. It's raining poverty as poverty increases. Oh, the middle class. It's raining in that as the middle class continues to shrink. And hurricanes are coming, Mr. Speaker, because not only is it raining mistrust, but the hurricane and the tornado is bringing the mistrust because the people don't trust them. They don't trust them. And poor governance. Oh, my God, it's storming. It's storming. The cost of living, Mr. Deputy, it's raining, increasing the cost of living. Yes. And I say to the Bahamian people, as this rain continues with poor governance, crime, joblessness, hard times, is it not time for a government in the sunshine?
Amen.
What a betrayal of the trust the small man placed in this government in 2012. They obviously believed in you. They believed in you more than you believed in them or cared about them. Mr. Deputy, we all know, however, that the increase is just a drop in the bucket, a drop added to a bucket of water. Imagine you go in to fight a fire with a bucket with 1 drop of water. Although you can't afford to admit it, they can't afford to admit it, with a general election looming, they well know that this country is in the midst of a financial and social inferno. And all they have is a bucket with one drop of water, while we're suffering a financial and social inferno. Unemployment is rampant and increasing. Businesses are losing money and closing. The VAT on bread basket items is sucking the lifeblood out of the poor, the vulnerable, and the most downtrodden in our society. VAT on electricity, water, medical, cancer medications. People cannot afford it because an additional cost for VAT. And if they truly care about the Bahamian people, they care about Baintown, Grantstown, Farm Road, Angliston, Grove, South Beach, whatever. Wouldn't they declare a VAT-free day or week during the back to school so that our poor people can now buy their clothing, their school items?
A little break.
In their 2012 election campaign, they promised faithfully to put Bahamians first.
They got a debit card.
That promise, Mr. Deputy, has proven as empty as the minimum wage compromise. Their power broking, their extended electioneering has put the Bahamian people's interest at the bottom of their list every time. The goal that they spoke about, the goal of their gold rush, turned out to be nothing more than fool's gold. It doesn't buy anything but frustration and desperation. Look, Mr. Deputy, just look at them. Look at them over there. All you see on their faces are mounting frustrations and desperation. Oh my God, that's all we see. Frustration and desperation. Mr. Deputy, in the beginning of this growing plague of layoffs came the redundancies at superb one and only Ocean Club, which must have knocked some of the wind out of their sails. What was the cabinet's response? The Minister of Tourism, the good member for West End and Bimini, came and called the redundancy of more than 20 workers unfortunate. That's his response, unfortunate. He said that the government had hoped, they hoped now, not you hope, but they hoped. They hoped for a different outcome, and the Ministry of Tourism was committed to growth in the industry, despite the bad news. Speaking on behalf of the cabinet, no doubt, the member for West End spoke further of trusting that acceptable settlement were met, hoping again that the hotel would have found a route that would have prevented this action. But that brings me to their crowning statement. The member played this PLP government's usual get out of jail card. He told us that his government was committed to the continuous growth of the tourism industry to create and sustain employment opportunities. Now, they were committed, Mr. Deputy, but they were also committed to creating jobs, solving crime. They were committed to many things, but they were committed employment opportunities and encouraged the tourism workforce to lift its standards and raise our levels of service to excellence. They're always committed. Commitment, they know. Delivery, they don't know. Resolution, they don't know. The Director of Labor, Robert Farquharson, revealed the true extent of the damage. 14 of 29 employees were made redundant immediately, and 15 were notified that they would have no job by June 21st. You know what it's like to be told that in a little while you'll have no job? You know the stress one go through, the discomfort, the pain. knowing that in a little while you won't be able to pay your light bill, mortgages, you won't be able to give your family whatever resources they need. That's painful. Since then, Mr. Speaker, the redundancy layoff ball had kept rolling and gathered more moss. Unfortunately, the moss is a lot of families that will grow more desperate and even more unable to pay bills. That means that more Bahamians will be facing the nightmare of foreclosure on their homes with no mortgage relief in sight, another of their promises that they never delivered. And then let's look at BTC. They were talking about BTC, so let's go there. Let's talk about BTC. What of the big fast of taking back BTC for the Bahamian people? That's what they said. They'll take it back. 2%. This government made big press about getting back 2%, which made the Bahamas government the majority shareholder. They had, when we left them at 49. They promised they got 2%. 49 plus 2 is 51. If it's still 49, then I see why we have D average in grade school, but it's 51. But again, it was just a deceptive public relations gambit. It brought hurting Bahamians nothing. The 2% did not come with voting rights. And what of the increase in dividend payments that would have come with the 2%? The Bahamian people have yet to know what has become of that. I do know this for certain, Mr. Deputy. PTC had joined the staff redundancy ban. All of a sudden, we hear BTC needs to reduce costs and restructure the company's workforce to remain competitive. But now, let's move on to BEC. BEC redundancies are next, and with the best will in the world, Power Secure can't save the day and stop that train from rolling. If they had achieved the energy efficiencies and cost savings they have contracted to effect, I don't see how they can do differently. And as I said earlier, you can't prevent every eventuality, but honest intentions and proper planning can go a long way to ease individual hurt and damage to the Bahamian economy. But honesty is not a part of them. Shame, they have none. So that's not in their vocabulary. This government has dragged its feet on liberalization of mobile market to the cost of workers, cellular customers, and Bahamian people in general. This government has dragged its feet on cleaning up the monumental mess that BEC has become. They drag their feet on BEC, allowing time for more expensive posturing and foolishness to go on. This government, them, you all, touted plans to restructure BEC early on. Yet it took 2 years to contract with Power Secure International to oversee the management. What bothers me deeply, though, is the fact that this government appears to be totally insensitive to the suffering of the people who put them there. Blackout here, blackout there. I was visiting Spanish Wells the other day, and people were leaving because there was power, no light. People who came, spend their vacation, had to leave. No light. Harbor Island. I was visiting Spanish Wells, and the problem was in Harbor Island. They were leaving. But Mr. Deputy, what even make it worse? With all the blackouts and the shortages, people are losing their electrical equipment. Fans being short-circuited, microwaves, air-conditioned TV, other electronics, and yet BEC don't pay them. They must try and eat. They have no job to start off with. They're getting a little minimum wage that we're just debating today. But BEC black out and destroy all of their electrical equipment, electronics, and then it's not replaced. From listening to the various, Mr. Deputy, from listening to the various TV and radio shows, it appears that ordinary Bahamians have a better grasp on the way forward than the PLP. We hear of the push to revive and expand many of the traditional economic pursuits, such as sponging and straw craft. We see the great push being made in the visual arts. Is this government, are you wise enough to see the vast, positive, and sustainable possibilities in these areas? Boy, time run out on me. Despite the fact that I am deeply concerned that BTC is now having to offer a third tranche of voluntary separation employee package, I see a glimmer of sound thinking in BEC proposed outsourcing of services and paving the way for more entrepreneurship in the telecommunication industry. I sincerely hope to see it take root, and I hope that BTC would allow the outsourcing and transparency so that those employees of BTC would be given first choice. As an honest man, Mr. Deputy, I have to emphasize that poverty and unemployment alleviation cannot be fixed by any government alone. Every citizen and resident in this country has a role to play in learning more, developing more expertise in whatever we do, and caring more about the less fortunate and the community in general. Ashley McBain, Corporate Communications Vice President of Kirsten International, the managing company of one and only Ocean Club, has provided a big hint that the Minister of Tourism should take seriously. We must do more to insist on quality in everything we do. Every Bahamian, every time. Quality in the Bahamas tourism experience must be memorable for highest quality and not just escape from near brushes with crime. Right now, Mr. Deputy, as far as I'm concerned, PLP stands for putting people last. The GPA, I box it for you. Mr. Deputy, I knew they would say that wrong, but I box it for you. I box it for you.
Y'all know what that is, right?
All right?
Y'all know what that is, right?
Now, while in Andres, Mr. Deputy, while in Andres, and I tried to explain that to them, they said, no, Doc, what PLP means, people loving punishment. But Andres don't love punishment anymore. As I move throughout, nobody wants punishment anymore. People loving punishment. But people love no more punishment. The GPA of the Christie government 2.0 as regards people care is far below the 2.0. Right now, it would be a happy circumstance if it could reach the D plus of the national average in educational achievement. They have to build in concrete using a solid and creative plan. I'm glad to hear about the new social safety net reform program. But a word of caution, and Honorable Minister, listen to me, a word of caution. I agree that improving education achievement is an imperative. But is their proposed methodology sound? If the children are failing in Ministry of Education schools, how in the world can the ministry be solely responsible for tutoring the client children of the new social service program? Isn't this a case of physician heal thyself? Let us think more deeply about this. thank you for the increase in the minimum wage. I say that my prayer is that it benefits more than the food store owners. May the good Lord help our struggling Bahamian families to make the most of it. And I put you on notice, public. The time has come to make a serious effort to truly putting Bahamians first. And Mr. Deputy, just one before I close, I just want to ask the Minister of National Security if he would kindly look into a matter that I am gravely concerned about with the Police Staff Association. I am led to believe that the Commissioner has given a directive that now all private security work will now be given to senior officers and taken away from the Police Staff Association. I would like the Minister to look into that, because if that is true, that will cause a serious morale issue within the police force, and we cannot have any dismantling of the Police Staff Association or an unwelcoming service at this time. Mr. Minister, would you kindly look into that, and if that's true, remedy that problem, please. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Can all members just kindly pause? Can you just kindly pause?
Honourable members, Chair recognizes member for Bain and Grandstand.
Point of order, just like
Point of order.